Tonight, we turn to a deepening and increasingly complex situation surrounding the war with Iran, a conflict that has now entered its first full month, and one that is raising serious questions not just about strategy, but about preparation, warnings, and consequences that many experts say were visible long before the first strike was ever launched. Over the past year, multiple U.S. agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, National Security Agency, Department of Defense, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, had reportedly warned about one very specific risk: cyber retaliation from Iran. And these warnings were not vague, they were detailed, repeated, and based on years of observing Iran's capabilities in digital warfare. And yet, despite those warnings, major cuts were made to cybersecurity staffing, particularly within CISA, only for the administration to later reverse course and begin hiring again as the threat environment intensified. That alone highlights a pattern that is becoming harder to ignore. Risks were identified early, but responses appear to have come late. But the cybersecurity threat is just one piece of a much larger picture. Before this conflict even began, top military leadership, including Dan Kane, reportedly outlined a series of potential consequences. Among them, the possibility that Iran could close the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point that carries a massive portion of the world's oil supply. That scenario is no longer theoretical. The strait has now been disrupted for weeks, sending shockwaves through global markets, affecting everything from fuel prices to fertilizer supply chains and even critical components used in electronics and medicine. This is not just a regional issue anymore. It is a global one. At the same time, the cost of sustained military engagement is beginning to surface in another critical area, the munitions. Reports indicate that the U.S. has already used hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles in just a matter of weeks. These are not easily replaceable assets. They take years to manufacture and cost millions per unit. Burning through them at this pace is raising quiet but serious concerns inside defense circles about long-term readiness. And then there is the question of allies. Before the conflict, there were warnings that international support might not be guaranteed. That concern is now playing out in real time. Requests for assistance in securing key shipping routes have been met with hesitation from several allied nations. Diplomatic efforts are ongoing, but the response so far has been limited, forcing the U.S. to shoulder a larger share of the operational burden. All of this points to a central issue. The consequences we are seeing now were not unexpected. They were outlined, they were modeled, they were warned about. And yet, here we are inside Washington. Another layer of complexity is emerging, not from external threats, but from internal dynamics. Reports suggest that some officials within the administration have expressed concerns privately while remaining publicly aligned. That kind of environment where disagreement exists but is not openly voiced can create a dangerous gap between decision-making and reality, because in moments like this, clarity is critical, honest assessment is critical, and the ability to challenge assumptions is critical. Without that, decisions risk being made in an echo chamber where everything appears manageable until it isn't. Meanwhile, the human cost continues to rise. Casualties are being reported on multiple sides. Civilians, soldiers, infrastructure, all affected. And while strategic discussions continue at the highest levels, the reality on the ground is far more immediate, far more human, and far more irreversible. And yet, perhaps the most striking detail emerging from recent reports is not about weapons or strategy or even diplomacy, but about perception. According to some accounts, there is a sense that attention within leadership circles may already be shifting, that the focus is beginning to move on, even as the conflict itself continues to escalate. If true, that raises a serious question. What happens when a war that demands sustained focus meets a leadership environment that is already looking toward the next issue? Because wars do not pause when attention shifts. They do not slow down when interest fades. They continue with or without full engagement. So tonight, what we are seeing is not just a conflict overseas, it is a test of decision making under pressure, a test of preparation versus reality, and a test of whether early warnings were truly understood or simply acknowledged and set aside. The situation remains fluid, the risks remain high, and the consequences, both seen and unseen, are still unfolding. We will continue to follow every development. Stay with us.